we tend to follow sheep behavior. We tend to follow more than question. And we tend to adhere to things just because people say things. And then we glue those things to our self-concept and our understanding and our whole worldview. How I see the world is a direct relation, the thoughts that are in my head, which are direct relation to the things that I've experienced that are 100% different to the things you've experienced through your lens. We are just so used to not questioning.
So let's start with you. Like, could you tell me a little bit about your background and what it is you do now?
Of course. Thank you. Thank you for asking. Well, I'll tell you geographically and ethnically a little bit. My entire family is Lebanese. So both my parents were born in Lebanon, but during the war in the 60s, they migrated and moved to Canada. And I think it was due to a language thing, perhaps. In Lebanon, you speak a mix of Arabic, a little bit of French, a little bit of English, and specifically in Montreal, in Canada, it's a bilingual. I don't know if you've ever been to Montreal, David, but it's a bilingual city, so a lot of French there, and a lot of Lebanese living there, and I think it's due to the language. And they moved there. They had me there. I was born in Montreal, and then up to the years of 4 years old, we got transported to Spain. My dad found a job opportunity here in Spain, and we came to live in Madrid. So I just started 2-3 weeks ago, actually, coaching. I guess we can call it coaching because it's the term that we can all use. I don't know if it's the fair word to use. I don't know what other word I would use for it though, so we can go with coaching. But it's working with other people in terms of a lot of their mindsets and overall outlooks on life. And it's funny because a lot of the people that I'm coaching are twice my age, and it's funny. It's a funny dynamic, but I respect a lot of people who are older than me and able to maybe let go of that ego or that idea that age could mean much. Because for you to be able to be coached by someone who is half your age is, I know it's not an easy pill to swallow for many people, and so far I've been blessed that the people that I'm working with have been able to do that, and so it's funny because my brand started very much on the social side of things. Like I when I started on X 6 months ago, I wanted it to be, my ideal goal was to coach people in the social sphere, but I don't know if that was, like, it was true to me and authentic to me, but it wasn't necessarily the place. I think perhaps because I noticed that when I started doing those free calls and I even got my first client, I was realizing that the entire time, our entire conversations were not about the social stuff. They came to me for the social stuff, but we were actually talking about and I guess it seems more obvious now, when I don't know how I didn't see it before, but I'm saying it now, is the social work and the social being of things will all come to be when you really can focus on your internal being. And that's why the first step is going inwards and actually working on mindsets, working on, internal work and on life outlook, life perspectives, and those kind of things, which is what I'm trying to rebrand my thing towards and focusing. And that's exactly what I'm coaching people.
Yeah, it's wonderful that you're doing that. There's a couple of points in there I'd like to drill down on. One is about age and one is about the internal. I guess I'll start with the internal and go backwards. So I wanted things, like I felt certain lacks, and I was looking to others to fill that, be that money or confidence or validation or love or whatever. And I found that it was always fleeting. Usually when I found what looked like it was that, turned out to be something else on the backside. And it took me a long time to realize what I like, the way I think now, which is that has to be like, your garden has to be tended within. Like, you have to grow it yourself first. And in doing that, you provide value to the group organism. And then you get everything that you were seeking in the beginning. And ironically, you don't need it as much. It's just like this symbiotic, sharing and caring, to put it in a canned way, I suppose. And the challenge is, if you didn't have that, if you were in an environment that left you with a fallow garden, it's difficult to know, like, how do I start the ecosystem? And that's where people like yourself, guides or mentors, I think, can help, And I really respect what you do, because it's got to be challenging, where you want to just show someone the equation. Like, here's the equation to the math problem, but you have to teach them how to solve it themselves. You have to teach them to fish. You have to teach them to tend to a garden when they never knew what a garden was. And self-love is where a lot of the problems that I see being addressed, like with suppression, like no more of that. I think actually self-love trumps all of that. It's a weird way, like in myself, I used to, like anyone, I'm sure I've got my hurts, and I used to think sometimes that writing that would be like, you know, maybe documenting it and then showing, like, the court of the world, like, look at what happened, and this is like, how do we write this or something? I was a good person, this was a bad person, etc. I'm not so clear. I'm not so certain about that anymore. I think that life is a gift. None of us deserve to be alive. And it's up to us to basically use whatever it is that we have. And ironically, it seems to be that that exceeds our expectations, exceeds our imagination. Like, we're really only limited by imagination. And as you start, I mean, really, what I remember a few years back when I heard about, like, some of the stuff that I'm mentioning now, it seemed like a cop out. It seemed like someone didn't want to give me the answer, and that's why they were giving me this. And over time and work, it started to be revealed, like, I was like, oh, I don't really care so much about the things that I thought I was chasing. And it's ironic, where I could see, like, on this path, it could lead to where I want it to be, but ironically, it'll be for different reasons. And I think it's a really exciting journey, growth that is. And I would encourage others, to at least consider letting go of the outcome, and just, like, being present and exploring the journey, because I think it's going to be way better than what you expect. And that kind of mirrors what I did in tourism too. I tell people on, like, day one, like, the reason I stayed in Japan was a happy accident. I followed friends. Friends convinced me to go on a trip. I wasn't planning on going, so therefore I didn't have a list. I didn't have any plans. I'm like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. And that forced me to be present. And I just experienced it. And I loved it. But I reckon it could have been anywhere. It could have been anything. Had I been present, I would have loved it. So that's what I tried to encourage my clients to do. And that's kind of what I'm trying to say here. I can relate to some of where I think your clients might be coming from, and also can appreciate the challenge of people in your position. But definitely keep it up, and I think that's very needed. And I think I'll just close the loop on my ledger. Once I saw love, it just washed away the ledger. It's like you're keeping, like, okay, one of these, two of these, three of these. Don't you see the imbalance here? And all of a sudden, it's like love on the other side, and it just, like, washes. It's like not even apples and oranges. It's just like a totally different thing. Like, it's immeasurable, and it's outside of time. It's outside of everything, and it's just like, and it allows you this kind of new dimensional perspective, where you're looking at a person you thought was someone that was hurting you or whatever, and you see them with love, and you see them as you see them as the child within, you see them as something that's more empathetic. Do you have any thoughts on anything?
One too many, David. One too many. I'd say the main thing that I'll take away from your message, that I really appreciate it. When you were saying, I mean, the love part is 100% true. Like, it's a choice that you get to make. And the fact that you would choose otherwise is enough in itself, is enough of a reason to look inward and understand why you're choosing that. Because you get to choose everything: the stories you tell yourself, the path you walk, the direction you're going to take, the coffee, how you're going to have it. You get to create and choose every little thing. And I found, and please tell me if you agree on your end of side, on your side. I don't know fully what it is you work on with your clients and the kind of work that you do with them, but like, one of the things I've noticed that I think has been the perhaps the hardest block for people, and I think it goes hand in hand with love, is the idea of belief, and the fact that they can choose whether to believe or not, whether it's in themselves, whether it's in a higher power, whether it's in their ability to love. And I like what you were saying, because I think it's that perspective of you are always going to have that choice, and I believe that life truly is a is a game of choice and creation. One does not precede the other. It doesn't. There's no order, but as you choose certain things, you can create certain things, and as you create certain things, you can choose certain things. And I think it's honestly for me at least, the reason I was able to get out of my situations, my own personal issues, whatever, we all have our problems. We all have our issues. We all have things going on in our lives. Your problems do not diminish mine. Mine do not diminish yours. But whatever we have, we can choose how to get out of them. We can choose how to deal with them. And it's exactly what you're saying. It's that ability to find self-love and to find, I think even self-forgiveness is a big part of it, because I don't think it's about necessarily putting love on top of a hate comment or on top of a negative one, but it's finding a way to understand the hate or the negative or where the blockage is, kind of shedding it away bit by bit, and then doing things that lead you to adopt the new identity and the new persona and the new person who chooses love.
We live in chaos, and with chaos, there is infinite possibility. And that can be a great thing for people that are optimistic, and that can be a horrible thing for people that are pessimistic, because you get what you put in. And that's not the answer that some people are looking for, but I think it is the answer. So you can demonstrate, and I think that's probably the best you can do. Once again, tend your own garden and do what you can, but also don't judge, because any deviation from what you would consider normal, I think a good assumption, if we're going to make assumptions, is that their fertilizer and their water was very different than your fertilizer and your water, and that if you were in their environment, you might be the same or worse. So, but at the end of the day, you do need to take care of your own garden. So try to split that difference. I'd like to go to the other point about age you said, and it's funny because I feel a very similar. I had a very similar kind of I'd say like an epiphany that kind of touches that. And I wanted to ask you first if you think it would be strange to perform heart surgery as a doctor, not as a hobbyist, but as a doctor, to perform heart surgery on someone who's twice your age. Do you think that's strange?
No, it's not. If I'm a qualified doctor, then there's shouldn't be a problem, right?
Why is it, do you think, that we as a society put the same, like we don't put the same kind of thinking when it comes to mental health?
I've never even seen it that way, David, and I love it. I love that you gave me that example. It's one I'm going to take from you, sir, and I'll use it when people say that to me. Why do I think that society puts it this way? It's like the many things of being part of this kind of society. It's just stuff that gets ingrained in you. I think I do wonder if things will change. Things are already changing. The fact that people are already able to accept it, like people that I'm working with, for example, is already progressive enough. But the fact that I even had that thought is exactly what goes to show, and to answer why. I really believe it's just what we've been ingrained and what we've been told, in the same way that we've been told that you have to graduate at this year and then go and get a job this time and go and work this many hours. I think it's the same way that we tend to follow sheep behavior. We tend to follow more than question, and we tend to adhere to things just because people say things, and then we glue those things to our self-concept and our understanding and our whole worldview. When I think I love the thing you said about the fertilizer and the water, because it's true. It's how I see the world is a direct relation to the thoughts that are in my head, which are direct relation to the things that I've experienced that are 100% different to the things you've experienced through your lens. I know I'm going a little bit on a tangent there, but I do think that the main why is we are just so used to not questioning, and it's maybe more comfortable to also just say, okay, let me follow what the rest does.
Yeah, I think just because one thing is true doesn't mean something else is true. I think that we're capable of high level thought. We just don't want to do it. It's like we're trying to conserve energy here, and so it's easier to like assume, Julian didn't know this word, so he doesn't know anything. So I'm not going to listen to him anymore. Like, who does that hurt, me or you? I think it's the smartest people I've personally ever met. I felt intimidated by. Like, you recognize there's like levels. It's like trying to, I like basketball. I play on the weekends, and you play against like someone in the NBA. It's like, whoa, I had no idea. Like, the TV lies to you. Like, you don't realize how good they are. And it really is awe-inspiring when someone, like a human being, devotes themselves to something. Going back to the PhD again, like, much respect. When like a race car driver or a fighter or whatever kind of thing that you do, and you just focus on that one thing, it is impressive. And there's 8 billion variations out there. But anyway, the smartest people that I've met, I've realized, like, whoa, there's levels to this. It's almost like they were being polite by letting me finish my sentence, because like they could just see through my like cells and they're like, I know. And but what I realized is that they were listening. They are aware that new information comes from everywhere. New information comes from 5-year-olds. So you really diminish yourself by cutting anyone else out, I believe. Broadly, I'm sure there's exceptions, but I say, don't let age be as big of a barrier when it comes to having a conversation with someone, at the very least. And I think for people in my group, talking to people in your group, maybe don't be ashamed of asking for help, or, talking to someone. Like, you might know some things I don't, because you definitely do. But just because I don't know some things that you know, I would also encourage you not to assume that means that I don't have valuable information that you could use. And so it goes both ways, I believe. Does that make sense?
100%. And I like it because it's a notion that I like to use. I like to say that I think in order to, you're mentioning the basketball players in the NBA, and there's a beautiful notion behind discipline or devotion, and having such a devotion for something. And I think devotion kind of forms the equation of, patience, consistency, and then the last component is what I refer to, or what I think other people can refer to it as being a humble narcissist. I think a superiority complex also goes hand in hand with that. And what I mean I like the term of adding the humble to it, because I don't like the term narcissist, but I think the humble narcissist, in that you are the best, and you're so good at it. Like, and this goes with what we talked about at the beginning, David, the whole about the loving yourself, having belief in yourself, and nothing anybody else says or does can shake you. But the humble part is important, because it's exactly what you're saying. And even somebody who may, on paper, seem like they're 20 steps ahead of you, you still have to listen with your heart and listen with everything you got, because there's so much you can learn from like you said, 8 billion variations. And you were mentioning before mentorships, and I like how you talked about how you didn't have a suit, you didn't have things there, and that reminded me, because one of my biggest mentor was always my father. And when we were so young, when I was like 10 or 11, or 12, he was like, I'm gonna take you to, he had to go to Peru for some work, and he was like, I'll take you with me, because I want you to learn how to sell. I'm going to put you with somebody I know there, and you're going to learn how to do door-to-door sales. And that way you will kill your shyness, not whatever. But the suit part was funny, because I didn't have a suit. I was 11, 12 years old. I didn't own a suit. So just like you were saying, I had to go and buy my little suit, and it felt like Pretty Woman. We were just walking around it, and we just bought, we tried on a bunch and bought one that fit. But and like that day was another example to me that showed me, besides finally, or like properly killing my shyness that day, I also learned, that was one of the first experiences with the age thing. I was 12, selling to homeowners some telecommunications product, and then that just reminded me of that.
That's a cute story, and a wise man, your father. I think sales, everyone should learn that, as like at the same age you did. I think it's such an important skill. We tend to think that it's only like people in a role defined as a salesman that need that, but it's everywhere, and it's a human to human interaction. I believe that's where we become superhuman, is with each other, not in, entirely ourselves alone. Maybe you need that balance to reflect, but just what's interesting, balance is elusive for our species. Like we tend, going back to the categorical type of thinking, we tend to overcorrect, and it's like, oh, I've been lazy. It's time to get in shape. I'm gonna hit the gym hard. 3 hours, just like I'm going to punish myself. Do you think I'm working out the next day? No. Like, I mean, ice cream, I'm resting on the couch, and I never want to work out again in my life. Whereas if I just take it easy and I just do 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and just be consistent at that, that's going to be much better than trying to overcorrect. And you can apply that to just about anything except for maybe fires. Let's assume that they're doing that right with putting out fires. But there's this notion that you don't need something from like one industry, like it only belongs to that industry or that role. And that's kind of what I'm trying to address. I'm not saying that it's wrong. It's obviously worked. It's got us here. But I've found in my own nomadic experience and my tourism experience and my clients coming from different industries and countries, et cetera, and being with them for a couple of weeks at a time as we traverse the country of Japan in this case, that there is something new and magical about synthesis, about new molecules being created from maybe architect in Oslo and a lawyer in LA and, a research scientist in Chicago and someone that grew up in the Soviet Union and someone that grew up in London, and all together on this like merry adventure, having these 3-hour conversations and just seeing kind of where it went. And each of them said, I mean, that's another thing. It wasn't just me and my ignorance. It was like each of them saying like, I've never had a conversation like this. And it happened, I led many of these tours over 7 years. And I was like, there's got to be something there. Now I was thinking I was staying in there, but the pandemic forced me to pivot. And I, because of those blind spots, felt, you know what, I should probably study some business. Like I should probably learn some of the terminology and learn from, the professors and stuff like this. So I went to business school, and of the tracks kind of laid out in front of us, entrepreneurship spoke to me. And I was like, why don't I apply that kind of tourism mindset to entrepreneurship and try to make those molecules with businesses and take those what I call outsider insights and like plop people in new places intellectually, if not physically, and just kind of see where that goes. So anyway, I felt that kind of tied into what we were talking about as well.
That is beautiful. I like that you took something so. I mean, I don't know if the other tour took people in tourism or tour guides would, if anybody else took it that way. So I love that you really, it shows you really introspected about it. It shows you did a lot of exploration behind it. So I acknowledge you and applaud you for that. That is a beautiful takeaway from your time in the tourism sector.
Totally, I agree. So about you and like, what are your goals? Like, what are you hoping to achieve with your current endeavor?
I see it more as an intention, perhaps over a goal, because I think it's a little bit more malleable, perhaps more like it can evolve as I can evolve. Because I don't know, I just feel like when I've seen it that way, it's been a little bit anyway, semantics. But I'd say my biggest intention is I've always wanted to work with people. I've always wanted to do. You mentioned people, how important everything is at the level of people, and I've always wanted to do things with people. And I've tried many different kinds of industries, really all different kinds. I've always wanted to do something with people. I knew that was my calling, or my love, passion was around working with people, and yeah. So my intention is to continue doing that. I'm happy that I'm finally doing the kind of. I've always done something with people, but this is finally what I've wanted to do. I guess my main intention is to be able to get to a place where I can do it in person. Because as much as it's beautiful that we have this technology, it's beautiful that we are able to do what we're doing now, unmatched in person. Like I know, like for example, my first client, my first two were in person, and now we're on an online format. And the difference is for both them and for me, I can feel it, and it's a shame. And it's what it is. But that's I would like to find a way. I don't know, either in a way that makes sense to be able to make that work. The idea of working with people, but being with people. I know, I'm sure you relate, right? The energy is, I know you can feel it on the screen, but there's energy that's beautiful in person.
Absolutely. That's how we're designed. Energy is something we don't quite understand, like where it comes from. Because there's like thoughts transmitted in energy. There's information transmitted in energy. Like, yeah, there is something about that. And I think you can explore like kind of a connection like outside of this like digital interface. Like you and I think could connect perhaps through the earth or through the like quantum field or whatever. There's so much we don't know, but it certainly does seem to be like there's more when you're in person. And there's like power spots kind of on the earth that many people believe in. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't.
In Japan, they're like that's where I came across the concept. Some of the Buddhist monks I spoke with talked about like power spots in Japan, and some of the other people I've spoken with since have said there's some in Italy, there's some in like Egypt, for example, all over the world. But I thought that was interesting, going back to the notion of us being kind of from the planet and of the planet, and perhaps the universe and etc. But yeah, there's so much to learn, and I guess just explore, like you say, like don't just enjoy the journey and enjoy it through others, because that's where you really get to apply a lot of your existence and learn a lot more about who you are and what it's all about. People like I remember the big question was like, what's the purpose of life? And it's kind of interesting that there isn't an answer. And I think it's more like there's no limit really on what the purpose of life is. But I do believe that it's about other people, at least initially. Where that leads, I don't know, but it certainly seems to be about others.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, 100%. That's a beautiful way to put it. It is all about others. And at the end of the day, like a lot of people like to say that it's about, money, about this, but and you die without your money, right? Like it doesn't matter. Like, so at the end, it's like you don't die without your reputation. You don't die without the legacy and the person that you were around other people. So I agree with that.
Well said. So where can people follow you? Where would you like to? Do you have a page or anywhere they can reach out to you?
Yeah, on my main place of content is X. That's where where I post daily, and then from there I have sometimes whenever I have YouTube vlogs or podcasts that I'm going to get back into. For example, the podcast. One thing I do in person, David, that I don't know, I love it, and I want to still. I don't know. You're making me consider do it also online, but there's a beauty to doing it in person, as we said. But yeah, so I have those that I post also on X for people, and then I have my weekly newsletters that are also everything. You can find everything on X at Julian Saad00.
For sure. Well, this is a pleasure, Julian. Thanks for your time. Thanks for sharing your perspective, and don't let age be a barrier.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's the thing I'm leaving with again today. Thank you so much for your time and for your words and for having me on with you. It's a true pleasure to meet you, David.
All right. Take care. Be in touch.